Hey, everybody, you're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Brian Pittard.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or in this case, stream in. And some of us are less hairy than planned. Well, you're you. I had that thing where you like, oh, and then there was no way I could shape it without it looking weird.
You did an endayu,
so
but on your face.
All came off. I mean, the stubble's coming in nice. You know, it's coming in quick. That's my mutant ability.
I don't know what that's like, but I can empathize.
So hopefully by the next show it'll be a little more noticeable. But as of now, no beard. Stinks. I don't know about you guys. I had a long day today. I know Caleb has some specific adventures he had in the legal world today. For me, I had the equivalent of writing a trial brief in 4 hours.
How long is an average trial brief, like page-wise?
I don't know if there's an average. I mean, I've been involved with ones that have been as long as 142 pages.
So how long was the one you had to write?
7. But it wasn't bullshit. It wasn't like it was segmented like that. I'm just talking about the content. Yeah. So yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
140 pages doesn't really count. Doesn't sound to me like it's a brief, more like a long. I'm sure that's the actual term, right?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just gonna wake up in the middle of the night screaming.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Hey, we've got some people joining us tonight. We've got Tony Gilkinson. Hey guys.
Hi, Tony.
Hey Tony. And then we've got Lima Nato as well. Good evening,
Hi, Lima.
guys.
Lima.
Good evening, Lima.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
thank you for joining us on this Thursday night.
And Brian, I know it's really hot where you are, but it does look like you're like waiting for a young man to enter your boudoir.
Wouldn't that be lovely? Oh wait, he's already here. He's just sitting next to me here. It's you know what? Seattle has been lovely the last couple of days. It's been like perfect 60s, 70s. It's been beautiful. Today it got into the upper 70s, and we had the house open, and that's why the fan's coming out, because it's a little warm. But this weekend it's back down to the 60s again. So yeah, I can't. I'm not complaining. I'm not. This is great.
That balmy summer Seattle weather. It sounds like.
Yeah, we don't have that.
And there's no smoke from the fires. Like, I mean, there's fires like freaking all over us, right around us. But thankfully, the gods are the god of the breeze. Who's the god of the breeze? Who's the god of the wind? Storm. Storm is smiling. Aurora is smiling upon us.
Brian, you are my brother. All right.
Aurora smile upon us, and also on you.
Your uncomfortable weather sounds like heaven to me, because as my weather app will tell you, here in Arkansas, the weather is sort of like getting teabagged by Satan.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Fantastic.
Let me see what we're at now. We're at 79, but the humidity. I mean, when we were in the 90s last week, the high 90s, the real feel was like 106, 107.
Oh no!
Yeah, it was bad.
It's
bad.
It's
and you guys have it.
Humidity.
You guys usually have it, far worse in different periods. Yeah.
All my Floridian friends are just like bemoaning heat and humidity and thunderstorms, which I do miss still. But I could not have picked a better area other than the occasional fires and other places.
I can take it doesn't matter how cold it gets. It does not bother me at all. It doesn't bother me one bit. Anything over 85 and I'm a weather wuss. Yeah. Yeah. What am I do to my hair?
Well, this is funny because I have it pulled back, but my hair is usually really short in non-COVID eras, and I didn't know how much it was affected by humidity. And now that it's long, oh my God, the days where it's more humid, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Well,
Mine just looks wet. When it's humid.
I have to
Because
keep
I
mine
sweat.
cut short because I live in the land of humidity and my hair doesn't. So, because I grew up listening to metal and rock and all that fun stuff, I wanted like the long hair, the headbanger hair. Mine doesn't grow down. It just defies gravity because of humidity and it just like poofs out.
Same. That's
Yeah.
what mine does.
Mm.
It's
I could.
I see, Caleb. You want everything of mine because,
Right.
like,
Yes,
I
I
can,
do.
because I do. If you want, I mean, you guys see me with the long hair. It doesn't take long for me to get to like Kenny Rogers level.
Oh, Kenny.
But like if I mean, I can't do like the hair metal straight down, but something like a natural, like say David Coverdale.
Yeah.
Like that's where I head. Yeah.
we have a
Hey.
comment from Tony real quick. I
Yeah.
have to share it here. So I moved from Washington to Florida, and Brian did the opposite. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
I'm not. I listen, Tony. You may have a very good reason for why you did what you did, but let me just tell you, I think I made the better trade, especially in the current era of Florida, because every time my mother's a teacher, my ex was a teacher. I have so many teachers in my life, and every time we talk about Florida, it's about COVID and the governor there, who will not be named because he's a douchebag. So yeah.
Ugh.
I'm interested to hear though, Brian, what the perspective is on him from the right, because I've heard it's turned over.
Oh, I could sort of. I know people who are conservative. I actually have like a handful still that I consider, and they don't love him. They think he's better than most other people, and they like when he does the sort of douchebaggery he's doing. But there's certainly things that DeSantis, I said it. The Satan has done that that they did not like at all. So it's a mixed bag, but yeah, douchebag.
Nobody's nerfect. Ha ha ha.
Well, anecdotally speaking, I think some of that is that segment of the political spectrum loves it when things are affecting other people and the own the libs mentality. But once things like this, when the actions of somebody like the douchebag down in Florida start affecting them in their daily lives, and there's some actual repercussions here in the now, then that tends to turn because it's the good for me, bad for thee mentality. But when it starts having actual impact on their day-to-day personal lives and their existence and their some family members, then that reasoning starts to kick in.
So much of conservative politics, and I say this because I was a ditto head back in the way back. I was a Rush Limbaugh listening little young conservative back in high school.
Yeah.
So much of conservative politics is generated by how does this affect me? And I feel like, not to say that the more progressive side is entirely selfless, it's not. But so much more of the progressive politics is not how does it benefit me, it's how does it benefit others and society, and all of us. And it's this stark, right down the center almost division in that sense.
On that note, it's been very interesting seeing some of the reactions to the airlifts out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Where it's like, Biden should be doing more. Well, do you want to live next to one? No. It's been very interesting seeing the reaction to the refugee question.
It's such they're bringing a bunch of them here to Seattle and Tacoma, and I think that's fantastic. And I can honestly say that this is
going to be the most fervent Americans you're ever going to see.
Oh, 100%. And this community here is embracing them. I mean, not universally, but so much more than if, you showed up to, a certain city in Florida and you're like, hey, you have these new residents, and they're just
well, and just in the spirit of fairness, shout out to the governor of Utah, who came out and said, hey, look, Utah was founded by people seeking to escape religious oppression. Bring them here. So Utah is going to be accepting some refugees and some American allies from Afghanistan too.
Outstanding.
Yeah. So there are conservative Republican governors who are bucking the trend and saying no, we'll take them.
And also bucking some of the trends in terms of COVID protections too.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, but we didn't come here to talk about that. We came here to talk about comic books. And look, short boxes.
You found some.
I got some.
So,
oh my God.
Can we talk about comic book supplies for a second?
Sure.
As longtime
Yeah.
listeners who even know or remember me, because I haven't been on a lot, as you know, I have kind of been slow walking away from comics for a little while. Not entirely. I still get digital, but in terms of physical books, especially because of my move, I haven't been buying bags, boards, boxes. I haven't needed them. So I'm going to my local store, which is Arcane Comics here in Shoreline, by the way. Great store. They talked to them. I asked them, like, so what's going on? Can you get bags? Kind of. Can you get boards? Kind of. Can you get boxes?
Kind
No,
of.
not at all. Like, it is fascinating how all of the supply chain disruptions have affected comics. And I don't know, you guys have probably talked about this, but have you guys been finding this as a problem recently?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Absolutely.
Not only have you
so
not
much.
been on, Brian, you haven't listened to a few.
Fair. It's just, sometimes I do. No, sometimes I do, just to chime in and say hi. But no, you're right. And I mean, it's a problem. It's a really unexpected issue. And again, because I'm digital, I haven't had to, suffer.
Well, from what I was told by not my LCS, but another local store, was the word was some of that was the temporary lumber shortage. As a wooden paper byproduct, that was some of the issues. Some of that was Amazon doing a few huge buys from BCW and some of the other suppliers. Some of it was just in terms of workforce shortage.
Yeah.
That the factories aren't operating as well. Some of them have come from Canada too, and Canada's had that same issue with manufacturing labor. So it seems that there's just like a confluence of a bunch of things. Yeah, the bags though, I have no idea why those were in such high demand. That seems to have gotten better.
The bags actually, it's the polymers that are required in the manufacturing, because there's such a high demand for other manufacturing, like poly bags for comics kind of falls pretty far down on the customer rung for a lot of these manufacturers and who create the polymers that go into this. So I mean, they're like the last things, just kind of like when it comes to the wood pulp manufacturers. File boxes or comic boxes, they're not high on the list. I think toilet paper got probably bounced up the chain on who's going to be getting the wood pulp. But yeah, I mean, for a while, I mean, I know some stores have gotten some supplies from companies that they've never ordered from before. Like, I've seen names on boxes and bags and boards. I'm like, who are these people? Like, where did they come from?
One of these here is completely generic. I mean, there's no identifier on it whatsoever.
Yeah, I think the ones that
I was going to say, anecdotally, I think some of our friends who subscribe from DCBS were telling me that DCBS ran out of just the regular bags, so they started substituting Mylars, which are much more expensive.
Yeah, we got that email. That affects Steve more than me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's an extra $quarter per bag or something crazy. Like that. I start getting all the self-sealing ones and all that, and I'm like, this is.
I love the self-sealing ones. They're hard to find in like regular times.
Yeah,
I love the self-sealing ones. So there's been some news. Steve, do you want to take us around the horn a little bit about some of the news bits that have come through in relation to the comic book world?
Well, there's obviously there's the film related comic book news. So MCU, of course, we've got a couple big movies that are coming up. We've got Shang-Chi starting in 2 weeks from the time this is going up, and we've got the Eternals that just dropped yet another trailer for their November premiere if everything stays the same. But for some future news, sounds like Anthony Mackie, just as of yesterday, has signed on for Captain America 4 officially. And aside from other rumor sites, I mean, Dateline and I think Variety have also put that story out. So I think it's a little bit more reliable as news. But it is official now that he has signed on for Captain America 4, which is pretty cool. So we are getting a fourth movie. It is not Chris Evans as Captain America in that one, potentially. Obviously, there's no director attached, and I don't think we have a script yet. But
my understanding is the guy, I forgot his name, who wrote Winter Soldier and Captain America is writing the script.
If he's doing that, then I'm sure it's going to be almost an exact continuation of Falcon and Winter Soldier. So picking up right where we left off with Anthony Mackie as Captain America. So that would be. I'm really excited for that. I'm glad that we're going to get another one, because those, aside from the first Captain America, like Winter Soldier and Civil War were two of my favorite MCU movies. So
Winter Soldier is my favorite, like far and away.
Absolutely, 100%.
Far and away.
It's number
Top
one.
Shelf.
Yeah. So,
but
yeah, that's pretty cool.
I saw this news and I wasn't surprised that Anthony Mackie signed on. I was surprised that people were surprised by it. Did I miss something there? Was there some question?
Well, it was. I think the concern was the Falcon and Winter Soldier was the end of his contract. Because Falcon and Winter Soldier satisfied the next film requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony Mackie's kind of famous for when he finishes shooting the scenes, he'll say it like in a very like robust voice that is Anthony Mackie, "Cut the check." That's like he's known for doing that. So as long as they keep cutting the check, he's going to keep picking up the shield.
Oh yeah, I hope so. He's actually been in. He's played the Falcon in how many movies did they say total? 6 or 7,
including cameos like.
Yeah, including just sort of like like an Ant-Man, just kind of popping by for that. But I mean, this is it is a big deal. Like you mentioned, there's no continuation of contracts. A lot of people are like their contracts are ended or ending. So for him to get re-signed, obviously it's a brand new contract, and hopefully they don't screw it up like they did Black Widow. Maybe.
And I think that was another issue with the developments with Scarlett Jo suing. Yeah.
Malcolm Spellman is the individual's name, who is the writer. I don't know if he's a showrunner or not, but certainly the writer behind the TV series, and is doing the script for the new movie with somebody else who I did not recognize, and whose name is gone now. So
fired.
I also was far more excited about the Eternals trailer than I was from the first teaser.
Like, what part specifically? Did it have anything to do with a certain giant red head?
Oh, no. I just love the tone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love seeing something that's kind of Kirby-ish, in life. Because from what I understand, and I've heard this from many animators, it's the reason you don't see Kirby dots often in animation, even in related animation, because it just doesn't work in animation. It's really hard to do. So, to see that, but just the time, I was not expecting how breezy it was.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you do have an opportunity for humor, and if you've ever read the Eternals, I mean, it's like joyless, like in any incarnation. So that gave me a lot, and it just looks like a really promising cast too. Like, even if some of these people are effectively cameos, I just think I'm just really excited about the potential of how well it can work.
I'm excited. I love Kirby. Obviously, I love the Eternals. I'm a little worried, and maybe I have no reason to be, because Marvel's had a pretty good track record, as we all said many times. But it is the biggest ask of an audience to say, "Hey, by the way, we're not bringing you any of the big heroes here. We're just gonna lay it on with this epic." It's like how I'm worried about Dune, because Dune has that sort of baggage where it's like this epic story with so many million characters and all this far-flung crazy, and you're asking people who don't necessarily know about it to invest. So, having said that, I would
say
I understand, but then I would also give you as Exhibit A Guardians of the Galaxy.
I was gonna say the exact same thing.
Fair.
Yeah. Just hey, here's a complete set of unknown. By the way, they're all big actors, though. I mean, we're throwing in some Angelina Jolies, we're throwing in some Selma Hayeks.
And
we've got a totally
also
Camille Nanjiani. Come on,
give it up for them where it's a like the age range of the characters is quite wide, and though they're all like thousands of years old, but and I just love people in middle age getting superhero parts. I just love seeing that. I absolutely love seeing that, and that it's not far fetched. That it's believable. Yeah.
Lima has a comment here. Brian Tyree crying really made me want to cuddle him. Like I needed any more reasons to be all platonic with him. So of course, also in the new trailer, he did have one of the zinger funny lines towards the end when Icarus basically smashes his table. It's like, it must be made out of vibranium or something. He's like, no. IKEA Fall Collection.
IKEA Fall Collection.
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I've been looking forward to it because of the cast for a long time, but now it looks, and Bill, you hit it, like it doesn't look like a joyless slog.
Yeah.
As much as sort of
doesn't look like
it's so epic.
It's cosmic, and there's cosmic implications, and it's a cosmic time you'll have watching those cosmic implications.
It's a graveyard
for Witchy Poo too. Like it's that sounds like something from the 70s, definitely. But it'd be pretty cool.
I got pretty emotional at the end of that What If. I don't know if you guys have seen that yet.
Oh
Haven't seen
God!
The second episode yet? No.
So good.
So
Wait,
good,
so we can't talk too much details, but I mean, I like the first one. I wasn't able to talk about it, on this show. I didn't talk about it. Oh yeah, I did do a flame one. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's out there in the ether. This one is so much better. The second one is.
Oh really? I would flip flop in terms of my ranking. Yeah.
Like, not going to say I didn't like the first one. I just thoroughly enjoyed the second one for so many reasons, and one of which, when we all have watched it, hopefully I will be on, because I would love to tell you how joyous that is. Anyway, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Who's the character that Jimin Hansu plays?
I don't remember his name, but I
can't remember, and he's been in like 3 of the films too.
Yeah.
I love that interpretation in this. I want a movie with him.
Fan.
Yeah,
it was a choice.
Yeah,
I was surprised by it.
There were a lot of choices in this. But,
Benicio del Toro collector thing was also. But I mean, I didn't hate it. I think Hansu's character was that him voicing it too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Even more surprising then, because totally not the same. Anyway, it's a different world. It's a different universe.
It's a what if. So they're going to play. That's what I love about what ifs, or just even the DC versions of them. They play fast and loose with these characters. That's fun. And like I think about Lady Thor when Jane Foster became Thor. Like there's so many things that are part of the canon now that they have reached back and grabbed out of what if. So it's almost like a ready-made factory for things. So do it, because it's just an idea factory for later on. So I'm all about it.
And of course gives lots of fuel for people speculating, well, what happened next? I've already seen several articles about if this happened, then it could be even worse, or it could be
especially if they're playing with a multiverse.
It could really and some of these things could show up again.
And some of them could be marketing bonanzas like Captain Carter. You're gonna see a shit ton of cosplay with that.
I did want to point that out too about Captain Carter, because one of the things that popped up afterwards was Captain Carter in the original pitch for that episode, Captain Carter next to the Rocketeer. That was part of the original pitch, and the original artwork based on that was just very cool. And even though I'm not a huge Rocketeer fan, like I did love it when I was a kid when it came out. In the theaters,
see,
just
that's
the imagery.
Weird. That's weird to me, but keep going.
But the imagery and the style and everything really would fit perfectly with it, and I could kind of understand the pitch.
Yeah,
obviously not going to happen in an MCU vehicle, but was pretty neat. To see something like that as part of the person who ended up writing that episode. Something that he had looked at.
Yeah, because for me, The Rocketeer is not the film; it's Dave Stevens' work.
Yeah,
that's not The Rocketeer to me. It's fine. I enjoyed it, but it's not The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
So, and still no trailer for Spider-Man Far From whatever the hell it's called. Home.
No Way Home.
No Way Home. Yeah.
And they have bumped out Venom 2 down to I think October, November.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I haven't watched any trailers for that. I just know what Carnage is in it.
Yep.
Yeah, and Shriek.
And then
I don't know.
Is like who Vulture's in Morbius now?
Maybe.
Is that still happening?
Yeah, no, that got added to Michael Keaton's IMDb page.
Well, because Michael Keaton is in it, and that was in the first trailer. He just kind of makes a brief appearance at the end of the trailer.
But he wasn't credited as Vulture, and now he is in the IMDb.
Yeah. It was speculated probably.
Yeah.
It was too much,
All right.
But yeah. And there was one big piece of news that popped up last week or the week before that we didn't talk about last time.
Well, I have one sort of big piece of news. And that was, tying in our COVID time, seeing some of the freakouts about New York Comic Con announcing that they're going to be proof of vax and mask only. Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Like there was significant pushback?
Not well. Let's just say that the New Yorkers came out in force. Okay, that as soon as people were complaining about, they're saying, "Look, your URL is from fucking Russia. Shut the fuck up." So, so there was a lot more of. It was the reactions were far more East Coast than I think you're used to. So that was very enjoyable. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're not fucking going to this show. Shut the fuck up. Nice. And if you are going to the show and you still complain, give me your fucking tickets.
Well, and it's not even right. Well, it's not even like the show's call because I'm assuming with New York City law.
No, it's with.
I was kind of amazed. They just had MegaCon in Orlando, and I'm just amazed that they actually were requiring masks there. They didn't. They didn't do proof of vaccination per governor. Douchebag. But they still had a lot of required masks, and I saw a lot of great cosplay that incorporated the masks as you would expect. So
yeah,
which to me is just
that would be the funniest thing, like a cosplayer bitching about wearing a mask. That would be the funniest damn thing.
Tell Michael
be creative with it.
Tell Michael to do a sketch about that. He needs to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of Michael, we got to talk about Superman at some point coming up. Given that we had the conclusion of Superman and Lois and some other Superman stuff, we have to organize that. Yeah,
we'll talk about that. I'm still holding off to watch.
So good. It's so good. The ending is so good, and it was one thing I do like about the CW is when they do have season finales. I've noticed this over the last 2 years. The resolve is kind of like at the 9:45 point, But then they have either set up for the next season or other resolutions, and not just like resolutions. Okay, we're all goodbye. They do plant seeds, and this is some of the best gardening you're ever going to see. I can't wait to hear what you think about this, Steve. I loved it. Yeah.
I guess I got to watch the show now.
Yeah, me too.
You should be. I really do think you'd enjoy it, Brian.
Everything I've seen and heard from you guys, I no doubt I'd enjoy it. It's just
And we'd be honest, the Flash kind of, tanked.
That's a shame.
Yeah,
but Superman and Lois. I mean, the first episode is going to give you goosebumps. I mean, just watching it is.
And then when you get to the flashback episode, boy, that's one of the best hours of television ever. Period.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Yeah. All right. Well, go on. Let's talk about the elephant in the room.
or the a virtual elephant on the online journaling site. So basically, several big names have announced that they are leaving their respective companies, their publishing houses that they've been working for either exclusively or semi-exclusively for the past couple of years. And these are big names. Jonathan Hickman, with the architect of the X-Men over the past couple of years, and as well as James Tynion IV, who has been pretty much running a lot of the Batman that Tom King is not doing. JT has been doing the rest, along with some other stuff through Detective and a couple other series as well. They both announced that they are just going straight to this service called Substack, which, unless you're a big political person, or really into sort of online, I don't really call it journalism, but like online opinion journalism, blogging. Yeah, basically, it is blogging, but it is a big monetized blogging platform. So people will go on there, and very similar to a Patreon, they provide articles or videos or what mostly articles that they've written, essays to their paying audience, and so you have people subscribe to them just like you would for a Patreon or other type of service like that. It's very interesting platform. I mean, obviously it's good. I for some people and for some I guess types of blogging, it's not all bad, it's not all good, it's kind of a mixed bag, but the site is very famous for some less I would say generally acceptable type of bloggers, journalists, journalers, essayists, etc. I mean, it is a pretty mixed bag. I mean, on the same page, you'll get a recommendation for an Arab feminist writing in Egypt, and you'll also get what's his name, Glenn Greenwald, in like the same recommended for you list. So
yeah,
mixed bag. It's very interesting that several big comic names have decided to go and put out new comic issues in this format using this platform for subscribers going forward. So,
wasn't Glenn Greenwald supposed to retire or go away?
I mean,
yeah,
possibly.
I thought, yeah,
call back home to hell. I don't know. Like the demon kind would come and reaccept him back into their
I vaguely
I'm not really sure.
I vaguely remember that conversation. But here's the thing with Substack. Substack is a relatively new company, and it happened to come around about the same time that a lot of these other I call them social media apps or whatever, be it Parler or Telegram, kind of came up. And at the same time where Facebook and Twitter started cracking down on some of this alt-right, basically Nazi conversations. And so some of them also went to that, to Substack. Now, I don't think that you can hold that against the people who are going there to try to find a new market and to try to send their get a new product. And I will say, after reading one of Tynan's blogs or whatever you want to call it, newsletters, interestingly enough, Substack doesn't use the same type of algorithmic process that the other Facebook, Twitter, everything else do. So it doesn't read what you're looking at and then bring more stuff to you. So it's literally you search out what you want, and the program that's the end of the road for it. It doesn't go find more stuff. So it's not like, okay, you're typing in Glenn Beck and now we're going to find insert other person here. It just the road ends with that. Or in this case, if you're looking for Scotty Young, it's going to find you Scotty Young, and then it's up to you to go and find other things that you want. So I get that aspect of it. And in that newsletter, he wrote a really good and poignant point of view that part of the algorithmic stance of social media is part of what's wrong with our culture as it is. Like, we all live in these bubbles, and it sees what we're looking at and tries to one up itself. The algorithm does. Mm-hmm. And so it leads down a bad path. or it can lead down a good path. I mean, but the problem is it's tribal, right? So that's interesting. I think Substack is going to be number one. They've got a lot of money, and on one hand, I really think that it's really kind of just investment capitalism. I think a lot of people are putting money in this, investing on the bottom end. They're going to make it really profitable. I wouldn't be surprised to see it get sold for a lot of money in the very, next couple of years, very near future, and for these kind of grants to dry up and go away once it goes into other hands. But they're signing these deals with writers, not artists. And so I think this is going to provide a good opportunity for, and genuinely speaking and generally speaking, the writers that have signed up are going that, I think are good people. I think they are people who care about their partners and work with, but it is going to allow them the opportunity to put their money where their mouth is when it comes to to creator rights. Because the contract with Substack is with the writer, and the grants go to the writer. So it's going to be incumbent on the writer to number one, pay the artist to produce the product, but also to ensure that the writer and the artist and the colorist and everybody else involved with it get royalties, have product ownership, and not just a page rate, which is something that we don't have. We don't have moral rights. I know Bill and I get into this conversation every once in a while. We really don't recognize moral rights in the United States the way that every other country basically in the world does. It's a very small window. Anywhere else, if you had this deal, by the very nature, it's an implied kind of thing. The artist or whoever would have ownership. They would have a copyright to their work.
Yeah,
you couldn't do a work for hire. You can't do that other places.
Yeah,
you can only do that here. So it's going to be interesting, and I think we will see good people take care of other people. But it's going to be interesting seeing the, instead of these big corporations, which often say, "Hey, this is our product, and we'll just pay you." The micro level, the personal level, these writers come out and say, "Okay, this could put money in my pocket, but I believe in creator rights, and I'm going to give you 50%, or I'm going to give you co-ownership with everything that involves." So I'm going to be curious to see how some of these subcontracts or subawards to the actual artistic teams go.
Yeah. It's interesting you brought up moral rights, because I haven't thought about this in ages, because I don't need to. There's a legal concept in regards to entertainment works called merger.
Right.
And you see it most often. The classic example is the Broadway musical. That there's a point where all of the elements come together and merge, and that's the work that's protected.
Right.
It puzzles me why comic book work, at least independent comic work, doesn't follow that. It puzzles me that that there's a point where the artist and the writer are of the same, that everything they brought to the kitchen in terms of their ingredients gets mixed in and it merges. I don't understand why we can't follow merger.
My theory on
lines,
that, my theory on that is because for time immemorial, comics have used the traditional prose publishing model. So they go through the same type of publishing and the same type of publishing deals and contracts that a prose writer would go to. And so they don't really think about the legal side of it. The contractual side of it is not thought about. I think it's becoming thought about, but traditionally it has not been thought about as the same kind of visual medium that you're talking about, where there's music, lighting, there's a stage production, there's.
But you do have that with lettering and coloring. I mean, you do have have analogs.
Yeah, no, and I absolutely agree. I just think because it's using those traditional publishing routes, it's been grandfathered in to be treated like prose, to be treated like a prose publishing book. So there's a this is a sub project of mine that actual like comic book law. I would love to work on some legal stuff when it comes to comics.
And I think there's so many interesting things that have developed. Like one of the most interesting things I think is developed is the issue of crediting Jordan Garfinkel with the creation of Birds of Prey.
Right.
And it's a weird thing to say because they can be the black hats often, but editors are also remarkably underappreciated in certain capacities. And if you ever get that off the ground, Caleb, we'll talk. But it ain't gonna be me. But yeah, and the other thing that I think that brings up though is not every, for lack of a better word, partnership is equal.
Right.
And there certainly have been times that writers have brought more to the table in terms of the creation. I do think that Kirkman did much more of the legwork in terms of conceiving The Walking Dead than Tony Moore. It's just there. I mean, he's drawing humans. It's not. It's not something like an Invincible where there's a costume design and there's other factors. So it'll be interesting to see what future Substack disputes come in the future, if this is something that lasts. I also think it's important to note that not all these creators are necessarily under exclusive Substack contracts. The one that's been talked about the most is Tinian, because that is. Some of his other, some of the Boom work is being grandfathered, but in terms of Hickman, he has Marvel products. He has Marvel projects coming up. In terms of Chip Zdarsky, he has substantial DC projects coming up. So it isn't necessarily exclusivity.
That's a choice that Tinian made. That's not a choice that's not contracted with Substack. So I want to preface this and give credit where credit's due. A lot of what I know about Substack comes from reading a few of the articles like Tynan's newsletter, but also our friends over at 11 o'clock
Scotty Young
had Scotty Young on the other night, and he laid a lot of it out. So I want to, like I say, credit where credit's due. A lot of that's coming from this, but all Substack is doing is giving grants. Like essentially, they are saying, okay, we are going to grant you X amount of dollars up front and do what you want with it, as long as it produces a product. But this is, everything has to come out of there, and so that's gonna. So what Tynan has said is that he at the same time he had his exclusivity contract with DC and this new Substack deal where he can launch into it. He is hedging his bets and betting on himself that he is going to produce more and do more with free reign via Substack, and he can like I said, get his own editor, he can have his own colorist, he can bring in his own people than he would do under an exclusivity agreement, and that frees him up to also, like I said, the exclusivity was just with DC, it wasn't with Substack. He can go do a work for hire thing with Marvel right now if he wants to. The only thing keeping him exclusive to Substack is his own, like, I guess, model of production. So it's really cool. It's I don't know how I particularly feel about it.
I'm so, for me it's such a wait and see, because even now digital is such a fraction of comic book marketplace. It's such a fraction, and I don't see that. I think the novelty will attract people initially, and I do think that Snyder's plan is remarkably airtight with the premieres on this and the tie-in with Comixology Unlimited, and also with the eventual publication through Dark Horse. That seems like a really well-conceived plan. I don't see that from the other creators, or at least I don't see that announced from the other creators. So, who knows?
I think they're all doing. They don't have a universal plan.
Right.
It's not like like early Image, where everybody kind of got together and it's like, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, this is your sort of realm, and then we're going to play with each other's action figures at some point. But here it's just sort of everybody's got their own idea to use this platform in a way that can put out some of the work that they've been working on, or that they plan to work on. I mean, I'm sure that some of it's going to end up just like a Brian Michael Bendis Jinx World thing, where they're going to start something that's on Substack, so it's available just digitally, and then they might take that, lift that whole idea, lift all those books and whatnot, and then send them over to like a physical publisher.
Yeah, what's the usage rights
because they
for that?
could.
How long do they have to keep it exclusive on Substack before they take it somewhere else?
I'm not
I
sure
don't think
that's
necessarily defined.
Yeah, I don't think that's been answered, but I have heard all of them, like basically everybody who's done this, say at some point this is all going to be printed into a physical medium and be available as a physical medium. So I really do think, and this is something that's kind of cool. I really do think that it's an open field. I think creators, the writers specifically, they have kind of carte blanche to do what they want to with the grant money, as long as it meets the terms of the grant. So as far as publishing and everywhere else, I think it's going to be available through Substack. But I mean, I also think like you're signing up for basically, it's just like a newsletter. So it's going to come straight to your email. I don't think you actually have to go to Substack. I think it comes to you.
Yeah.
You subscribe to what you want. Yeah. It's a subscription, essentially.
I'm so lousy at opening emails.
I know, right?
For people like Scotty doing what he's doing, I mean, so he just announced a new image book coming up called Twig with, I can't remember the artist's name. Forgive me. But so he's just planning things like this is just another place for him to do things at. And again, I wish him the best of luck. I don't necessarily understand the benefit of doing what Tynan's doing and funneling down to just this, because, and this is my opinion of comics just in general and the way that we think about them as the direct market. You've got to open it up. You've got to put comics in more places than just one website like Comixology or just comic book stores. I think I don't understand.
Yeah, that's an argument that's been going on since the direct market took off.
Right.
And it's nothing. There's no answer to it.
Right.
It's a niche thing.
Yeah.
And I think the quicker publishers accept that that's the way it is, because think of everything that's failed. Every move, whether it's been, DC's initiative with Walmart, everything has an initial interest and then it just doesn't work. And I know I'm going to get on my high horse. Like, I don't think it's worth pitching comics to kids. I just don't think it's, why bother? They have video games, I think the introduction of the characters is worthwhile,
right.
But I think the medium should be reserved for people when they get a bit older. So the comics are there on the internet.
Yeah.
They're there. You can find them.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much more that can happen. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any new delivery systems that's going to make any sort of difference right now.
No.
Yeah.
It's a new twist.
Yeah.
It's a twist.
It's a twist.
All right, we got to start moving on this show because we're already at Jesus, like 50 minutes in. Yeah. So geeky stuff people got. Let's see what people got some stuff over the last week. Brian, you've never done this before, so what have you got?
I mean, I totally should have asked what the parameters were. Yeah. So when I was there for Free Comic Book Day, I had to get something because and none of the new issues. So Cena had this book come out, Cena Grace, Nothing Lasts Forever. I might have had a review copy at one point, but either way, this Arcane Comics in Shoreline, Washington, they have a queer book section, and Cena's stuff has been prominently featured in it. And so I was like, oh, I got to get this. And so far, I mean, it's Cena. It's delightfully honest and very raw, which is what I want.
Yeah.
And I love it. So if you haven't already checked out all of his stuff, but the series, the Self-Obsessed and Nothing Lasts Forever and a couple others, like the ones that he writes and draws, are just so sincere and direct, and it's very very precious stuff. So
yeah.
Okay, cool. Steve, you. Let's go you.
Well, one of the things, because of course I went to my comic shop on Free Comic Book Day, and we'll talk about that very shortly. Picked up a couple weeks worth of books because I was a bit behind. And one of the books that you talked about last week, Bill, was Not All Robots, #1 that came out. And this cover just happened to be there for me to pick up. And it tickles me. I'm sorry. American Gothic just makes me really happy.
Yeah.
And seeing Not All Robots as American Gothic just made me really happy.
Right.
I usually do not get or even see a lot of variant covers for AWA books. In fact, I think this is probably one of the only few that I've seen, and it's great. I mean, it totally it totally encapsulates sort of a Mark Russell style humor and commentary together, just on the cover. And I think this was done by Mike Deodato Jr., who also did the interiors.
Okay, cool.
So pretty cool. I'm really excited to have this version.
Okay, Caleb, how about you?
All right, I got a few things, so I'll go fast. So, like a lot of people, one of my favorite artists of all time is Tom of Finland. A lot of us, I should say. But so I found this online, and it's called an ode to Tom. I'm having to cover up some stuff that I can't put on Facebook. But it's called an ode to Tom, homoerotic art from Japan, and this is done by somebody that I know, especially I know that Brian is a fan of, and I'm a fan of as well. But it's Gengora Tagame. Did some of the artwork with this with Go Mishima and an artist named Jiraiya, who I did not know of and had not heard of, but I am now a huge fan of. And I'll show you an image that I can actually show you without getting kicked off Facebook. But I mean, you get this, it's all pinups. You get all kinds of art in different styles. Some of it is very revealing, but I like it. It's cool.
I think I barely noticed the Shiba Inu puppy in that picture. It was there. I did see it.
It's cute and fluffy. And then, like we talked about a few weeks ago, Roger, my husband, and I bought a record player. So I have added to my collection by 2 records this week. This is the Rolling Stones Hot Rocks 1964 through 1971. And it's got all of my favorite songs on it, but like my two favorite songs from Stones are "Gimme Shelter" and "Wild Horses," and this has got both of those along with a ton of other songs that I love. So I'm super excited about that. And then a record I've been looking for and just found, just got it in the mail today, is "I Put a Spell on You" by Nina Simone. So nice. Super excited to have this. It's got, I adore Nina Simone, so I've already listened to that one twice today. And I've only been home for like 4 hours. And then last but not least, last week I had the leader. This week I've got my lady. I've got the Scarlet Witch. So
okay, I actually didn't get too many things. But keeping with the Funko Pop, I just didn't get too many things.
Not too many, just enough.
Yeah. Well, don't ask him what the answer to that is. So continuing with the Funko Pop, I'm continuing on with the Suicide Squad Pops, and this is Polka Dot Man. And much like Brian, this was a Free Comic Book Day store purchase. One of the main store that I would consider my LCS is Main Street Comics in Milltown, and Mike very graciously allowed me to get my books on Friday, which is very nice to get some of the freebies. And I'll talk about Free Comic Book Day in a second. But one of the other stores I stopped at, which is East Street Mags in Montclair, New Jersey, handed me this for free. And this is a vinyl figure of the robot from Lost in Space. And this was a local comic book day offering. Local Comic Book Day. I think it's on hiatus, but it was their attempt of a more like a record store day where there's exclusives that are first available on that date. And after how I had my discussion with Jeff, apparently Local Comic Book Day was financially La Bamba. So that may be why I have this in my hand, but that's a nice unexpected treat there. And that's going to lead us into Free Comic Book Day discussion. And every year I try to get every book, and every year I fail, and I fell miserably. This year, between my stops at stores and another friend of the show who I don't want to get him in trouble, and DCBS, which you were able to order a few in advance. I will have everything apart from one. So that's what a stack of Free Comic Book Day offerings looks like. So heavy, but
dear Lord.
Yeah. And I've said it before on the show, I have a tremendous amount of affection for Free Comic Book Day, because if not for that, we might not be talking. Right. Because when the first Free Comic Book Day hit, I was in law school, and we had a problem with what the actual rules were with the exam that we had being proctored, whether it was open book or not. And we had a 2-hour wait. And that 2-hour wait led me to Fortress of Solitude in Newark, New Jersey on the first free comic book day. And those comic books calmed my ass down. And from there, that was when, part of my really getting back into the medium. So I have a lot of affection for Free Comic Book Day. So I know some of us have read some books from that. So I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what's a Free Comic Book Day offering that you read?
So I did the reverse of you, Bill, and I only picked up a couple things that I knew that I was interested in getting that I don't normally get, books I don't normally read. So I actually picked up a couple of the Batman books, Batman Special Edition specifically, and of course Suicide Squad, King Shark's little interesting one. And I actually am going to be talking about the Batman. This is the first. I don't think I talked about any Batman books on the show ever.
And I don't think you've been reading them since early Rebirth, right?
No, I read like a few issues of Batman. The only Bat title that I really stuck with was Batman Superman. And some of the special like miniseries like Last Night on Earth, and the Batman Damned, and a couple other big prestige series. But I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and read Batman #1, the Free Comic Book Day edition. And I have to say, I was very impressed with what was going on in it. It was a really great, short, quick introduction preview of the big event that DC is going to be doing with the Batman titles for this fall, and that is the Batman Fear State, where basically Scarecrow more or less takes over and or manipulates things behind the scenes, the heroes, the vigilantes, as well as the denizens of Gotham City. And again, it's James Tynion IV is sort of architect for this, and Jorge Jimenez was the artist on the introduction page or section with Batman getting into it. And it was very cool, very short, told you everything you need to know, got you right there, right up to the to the steps of what is going to be Fear State. Additionally, it also had a preview of I Am Batman, which is a new series with Jace Fox as sort of another version of Batman using what looks to be the old Batman mech suit repurposed for his own purposes, kind of doing the vigilante with a social justice cause that he doesn't think that Batman has really been able to do lately. And of course, he gets embroiled into some potentially terroristic manipulation of protest groups, and some interesting stuff in that. But two intriguing previews, and or like not even 0 issues, but sort of like a -1 issue for these two big storylines in these and I Am Batman, the new series. Really enjoyable. Very, very cool. So again, I haven't read any Batman books, so I have no idea where anything is. You don't have to. I mean, you just need to know who Batman is, who Scarecrow is, and there you go. You're pretty much all set. So as far as a Free Comic Book Day introduction to a major big storyline that's coming up pretty soon, I think this did a pretty good job. So yeah, my first Batman comic reviewed on this show, and I like it.
Steve, I'm kind of surprised you haven't been reading Detective since Mariko Tamaki's writing it.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that I was going to really get into it because I love her stuff, but you know what? It's still Batman.
Right, gotcha.
And I don't know. Just can't do it. Or couldn't. Right. Maybe I'll take a chance on Fear State now because.
No, I know not everyone has had the same bandwidth this week. So, Brian, do you have a Free Comic Book Day?
Yeah. So I didn't make it Saturday. I went on Sunday, and I got the 3 issues that they had left over, and that was it. So I was like, "Wow, good job!" Either they underordered and just had a run, or they just had a run, and that's great. So, and I did get thank you, Bill, for sharing the. If you did not know, Comixology has a lot of these digitally available, so that was also a really treat. So I haven't read all of them. I read one specifically to talk about, but I did hear that Stray Dogs. Anybody else read this one?
Yes.
I got this, and they already said it was really good, so I gotta read that still.
Now, is that
but
just the first issue?
Yeah, it is a reprint of the first.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this has been out for a little while. Then it's not a.
Yeah, since February. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It just wrapped up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I heard you guys probably talk about it before, so I knew it was in my head. But again, it was like you get that, and you get Judge Dredd. I've got the Judge Dredd book that was a part of it, and I haven't read that, but I did, and I was excited to get Avengers. I hope this isn't what anybody was going to talk about. And I also enjoyed King Shark, by the way. I was going to talk about that too, but what I love is, and I guess I'm getting the sense that this is sort of the summation of Jason Aaron's Avengers stuff that he's been doing. It's very timely because it ties into the multiverse, and it ties into this idea that the end of time in the God Quarry, that there is this Avengers Tower that has been accumulated, kind of like if you saw Loki recently in the spoilers, there's like this void area, limbo, whatever, that's like where all of the variants go and hole up and have like this, army of Lokis. So I like that conceit a lot. It had a Hickman-esque flair, but obviously with Jason Aaron's material from a while ago. Also the Deathlocks, which I love. Deathlock, it's kind of a ridiculous conceit. I love that we saw Deathlock realized in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series in a slightly surprising way, and not in a bad way, not in a purist, oh, that's Deadlock kind of way, or Deathlock rather. But I did enjoy though that like all these people are kind of like this they just become Deathlocks. And it did have a very DC vibe in that the multiverse were sort of like Elseworlds versions of the Avengers, which are really neat. Of course, the big moment, the thing that everyone's gonna be talking about is this reveal, the Masters of Evil. And I'm just gonna hold the page up, and you can kind of like start to get excited. Variations on your favorite heroes and villains that and more well, it's I guess an even split, have kind of combined, and it's like the best of the best, or the most messed up of the messed up variants, if you will.
Brian, was that Madame Mask or was that Destiny? I couldn't decide.
I don't think they say, do they? I don't think they say. It's just, she looks like, gosh, she could go either way. And actually, I think there's something else going on with the white enveloping her. Yeah, I mean, I would say Madame Mask is more of what I would go with, because it's that's more of an Avengers villain,
right?
But Wolverine's in there too, so my favorite, so Hound Wolverine, which is great, and young Thanos, like bratty child Thanos, and I really enjoyed that. And then like I guess like a Venom 2099.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that like a Venom Spider-Man 9? Yeah.
And then like Ghost Rider, Hobgoblin, or a Ghost Rider, like Green Goblin Rider kind of thing, which is interesting. And then I guess maybe like a Hulk version of the oh gosh, what's the thing from Thor? Destroyer.
Yeah,
like a very bulked up, maybe irradiated Hulkish Destroyer. Not that they're already pretty thick, as the kids say. Anyway, great stuff. Highly recommended. The second story was like a free. I don't understand what's going on in the second one. Honestly, it's kind of ridiculous. I guess, and I need to read. This is on my list too. The Immortal Hulk. Everyone said, and I've heard this many times over, is fantastic. That's wrapping up, and I guess they're taking the Hulk now back into space. Yeah, and so you're getting this like short like adventure with MODOK as like a foil briefly. And I love MODOK. I'm always a fan of when MODOK shows up. So I don't know. I'm a little, I just watched, it's weirdly synchronous. I watched the end of the last Evangelion movie, and not going to go into all that, but one of the characters that's from the show and from the movies, they've done this thing where he has like a visor, and then they take the visor off, and it's this whole weird, crazy reveal. So yeah, when I saw Hulk with this visor, I was like, oh, having echoes of that. Anyway, fun and Marvel. So obviously it's going to be fun. But I hopefully you guys check this out if you're. And I have not been reading Avengers, and I have not been keeping up with any Marvel continuity whatsoever. So other than X-Men, so this was very readable. I picked up what was going on. We're good. So.
That was better than most of what's been in the Avengers. Just yeah. So, but the back half of the book. So I actually enjoyed the Avengers story too, and I think that's the next chapter in what Jason Aaron's going to be doing. But the back half of the book, that is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that's the first look we're getting at Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman doing Hulk. Yes. So that's the creative team that's going to be taking over. From Al Ewing and Joe Bennett and Rui Jose and all the rest of that crew. So I think that's the first time we've seen them. So that's the beginning of this. So I'm curious to see if that team can do. I'm curious to see if Donny Cates can do with the Hulk taking over after what is by all accounts an iconic run by Al Ewing that he did with Thor. Taking over after what Jason Aaron did with Thor. So it's kind of like being Ann Nocenti following Frank Miller. Ann Nocenti's run was amazing on Daredevil, but nobody talks about it because of Frank Miller. So for Donny Cates to take over both of those titles, Thor and Hulk, after these amazing runs, that's he's leaning into it, and I applaud him for that. So I'm hoping he does great. But I love that as well. So
zany in he's big ideas writer, not like Hickman, because Hickman takes himself a little too seriously, arguably, although he's got a funny sense of humor that I like. But Cates comes in and just dials everything up to crazy levels, completely steers into the bizarre and has a sense of humor more than not. I would say.
And not only that, but Cates pulls so many nuanced things from the history of these characters. Yeah. Like Hickman looks forward. Hickman looks at how he can take and rearrange the molecules of these things and do blow it up. Donny Cates does something really cool. It looks forward, but he reaches for a young guy, because I think he's around the same age I am. For a younger guy, that dude is an encyclopedia of Marvel history. He just knows his stuff.
See, I think he may be slightly older than you, because I've seen him in interviews, and he was I wouldn't want to say a teenager when Venom emerged.
Okay.
But I think he's a little bit older than you.
Okay.
He's 36.
Yeah, see, I'm 33, so he's not that much.
A little bit.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
But a wee lad.
So
my brother's age.
Caleb, do you have a book?
I do. So
FCBD?
Yeah. So number one, again, I want to piggyback everything that Brian just said, because that was one of the books that I picked. I didn't pick it up. I read. Unfortunately, I had a trial, law student. I wasn't going to jail or anything. I had a trial on Monday, so I spent most of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday doing trial prep. So I didn't get a chance to go by my LCS, but shout out to my local shop, Kapow Comics over in Sherwood. They had the original Blue Ranger come hang out and sign some autographs while it was there. So it was a fun time by all accounts, and just a good job. But I, because of our beloved Bill, knew that there were some free comic books on Comixology, and I grabbed this this book that comes from a publisher that I fell in love with because I'm a Conan fan, and it's a Blaze Comics, but they put out a book called Treese that it looks like it's a reprinting of, I don't know where the book comes from originally, but it's a mix between noir and horror and psychological mystery and supernatural and preternatural mystery. It's a lot. I'm glad it was a free comic book day offering. I'm not going to say anything bad about it. It's just not my cup of tea. But it's written by Bujet Tan and drawn by Keijo Baldissimo, and essentially it follows this character who is kind of a detective, but is tracking down a woman who may be an actress, and she disappeared, but then she reappeared, and she may have had a baby, but she might not have had a baby. And she had a creature who was made of mud that was a friend, and then somebody pops out of a sewer, and they took like 40 ideas and shoved them into one issue. So it was an interesting read. I'm glad I read it. Like I said, it was just fine. Yeah. Great cover. I enjoyed the art, but this isn't a book that I would necessarily continue to read just because it's a lot. But I am glad I read it, and I think it's really cool that that Ablaze is publishing this and picking it up from. Again, Ablaze picks up a lot of these European artists, and so it looks like they're grabbing some manga or some Asian artists as well, and some stuff that's being printed to the east of Europe. So shout out to them for that. And you know what? If you want a weird take on noir and fantasy and preternatural detective dust people, then check out Treese. It's a fun and zany and crazy little book. So
sounds like it ticks all my boxes.
Yeah.
Dust people, I'm in.
It looks like it's being promoted in tandem with a Netflix anime series that's coming up. And on the back, there's a quote from Jay Oliva, who directed many of the DC Universe animated, and he is the director and executive producer of that series. So
okay.
So David Toby just reconfirmed. I think Treese is a Philippine anime.
Okay.
That makes
on
a lot.
Netflix,
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, well, since we brought up David Toby, this is a perfect transition. One of the books I read, I'm going to talk about two very briefly. This is Bountiful Garden from Mad Cave. Now we know we've had a pretty good track record recently with Mad Cave between Villainous and Nottingham, and their exquisite creators that are involved. And this is written by Ivy Novell Weir with art by Kelly Williams. It takes place in the year 3030. And what is happening, it's another situation, and you've seen this in movies before, like Passengers, that Earth is being threatened with extinction, and people go out into space to try to find a new home. And this has a bit of a twist in that the people that they sent out to space are hyper intelligent or hyper abilitied teenagers. So they go out, and there's 6 of them. One's an architect. They all have specific rules. One's an engineer, one's an architect, one's a botanist, that would all be very important in the continual survival of humanity. And they awaken 10 years earlier than anticipated, and they're above a planet that's uncharted. And they decide to split into 2, 3 people to see what was going on in regards to why the ship broke down. And 3 other people are going to explore this planet, which is not on any of their charts. And when they get down to the planet, they see there's a lot of vegetation, but there's no animals. And just as they're thinking that they're not in for any encounters with other individuals, they find what appears to be a church. So really interesting start. This actually is serving as the first issue. I think there is a first issue counterpart that you can buy in September. But really interesting read, Bountiful Garden, Mad Cave. And I wanted to keep away from DC because I know I'm going to be talking about DC books because that's all I had the time to read. And, again, with Free Comic Book Day, you always have entries that are mature. You have entries that are for teens, and you also have entries that are for all ages. And I did pick up Allergic, which is written by Megan Wagner-Lloyd with art by Michelle May Nutter. And this is from the Graphic Scholastic series of books. Really, really wonderful art there, slice of life, about a girl, Maggie, who finally convinces her parents to go get a puppy. And when they do go to a shelter to get her a puppy and, see how happy they are, she finds out she's allergic to animals. And we have the introduction of what her plight is and what she's going to do about it, since anything that basically has fur is going to be something that's going to be problematic. We end the story with the no fur or feathers possibilities. So she's narrowed it down to 9 possibilities of having a pet that range from fish to tarantula. And I absolutely love where it ended, with her imagining what it's like to have all of those, that menagerie as pets. So I believe the actual book comes out. if it's not already out, it's I'm just trying to see where the actual date was. But this was really charming and cute and wonderful and adorable, and I liked it.
Totally going to advocate for her to get a Sphinx cat.
Yeah,
That's what she needs.
and it's also awesome. They actually get into the science of allergens, and so she's like, she finds out the biggest danger to people who are allergic is animal urine, and it's like, I'm allergic to animal pee. It's cute. But what could be a downer because, like, hey kid, you can't have a pet. I just love her resolve that no, I am gonna get one. So I think I would pick this. If I did find this volume, I think I would pick that up. It's really cute.
I can also personally attest to having a Sphinx is a special kind of joy. But they're not hypoallergenic.
Oh, okay. I thought, okay, I was mistaken.
Yeah, it's like one of those things like the Portuguese water dogs are about as close as you can get, but not basically no mammal is completely hypoallergenic. And you know how I know about this? Because of the visit to the doctor and allergic.
Nice.
There we go.
Yeah, I get a little reaction every so often when I pick Barney up, my boyfriend's Sphinx, and otherwise though, fantastic animal. Just love those cats.
I love that you picked up Bountiful Garden. That's one book that I am actively seeking out right now. I've already told the LCS owner, like, because he packed all the stuff up just because free comic day was over. He's like, I need to get off my floor. So when you crack that up, get that book. Kelly Williams is a dear friend.
Really?
We talk all the time. I own a couple pieces of art by him. Kelly's also a fellow Arkansas guy, so he's the kind of dude that he could call me up and be like, hey, come help me move, and I would just go help him move. Like, he's such a good dude.
Well, we should get him on the show then, because I definitely think I'm going to continue with this.
Yeah, I'll ask. I'll reach out to him.
Excellent.
He's awesome. Him and his wife both are phenomenal people. So
awesome. All right, so we're a bit late, but I guess we'll just make this a long episode. We got to at least talk about one regular comic each, right? Right?
Regular unleaded comic.
All right. If you have more than one, maybe we can speed it along. But let's start with you, Steve. Steve, what's the book that you're reading that you're digging?
So I was between this. I'm just going to talk about one, but I was between this and The Unbelievable Unteens #1, which is the latest Black Hammer book. But I'm not going to talk about that one because maybe somebody else here will. One of my fellow comic book bears, or
you have a lot of Black Hammer readers here, so.
Yeah, I mean, we're all Black Hammer readers. We're all going to probably read it. But I decided to talk about Runaways number 38/100, if you're looking at legacy numbering. So I read the original manga style run of the Runaways when they released it in trade form, because they tried putting the books together in a very like manga style, so they're smaller, all of that. And really loved them. And I hadn't read a lot of the Joss Whedon series up till that point, because he did, I think, probably the second volume or part of the second half of the first volume. But I thought that was great. It's like, you can't really top that. It's a lot of fun, but I'm sure there's not that many ways that you can write the Runaways that's going to be really exciting and fun. It might just fade away as one of those kind of series that, people remember fondly, but, don't really have a real desire to bring back in any kind of meaningful way. And thankfully, I was wrong. And a couple of years ago, Rainbow Rowell, and also for the first several issues, I want to say maybe the first 12 or so, Chris Anka, who I know, some people could be on either side of the fence with Chris Anka, but I really do enjoy his art a lot. They brought back Runaways with the new volume. And so far, it is now up to issue 38. And I'm not going to say so far. It is going to end with this issue number 38. So not only is it an anniversary issue, it's also the last issue of this volume by Rainbow Rowell. So it's done. We're not sure when the next Runaways is going to come out, but honestly, I think it is a good place to end it. It's been kind of up and down in terms of publication over the past year because of the pandemic. We had issues that were severely delayed, issues that would take 6 weeks to come out, and that's even including this year. So it seems like it was a good time to stop it. But they had a really great run. I think this volume is just a lot of fun. Very queer positive, very queer friendly. Really gets to the heart of a lot of these characters in a way that I think Rainbow Rowell excels at writing. She's a very popular YA author in prose, and I think she really is the perfect author to go and bring these characters to life. And she introduced some new characters in this. She reimagined some other older characters and really did a great job. And now issue 38 wraps everything up in a bow, ties up all the loose ends that she can, puts a new status quo for all of the characters and puts all the characters into a new location for more or less. So you have Chase is brought back to the future by a future Gert who's going to save him from becoming an asshole. You've got Karina is actually taken by her fellow alien race who previously had been hunting her. But thankfully, she's now actually no longer their number one most wanted. They're going to be bringing her back to help replenish her powers because her powers have been failing lately. There's just a really interesting thing. Obviously there's some talk of going to Krakoa because of young Molly, who is the mutant of the group. She was possibly going to be pulled over by Wolverine a couple issues back, and that was a big misunderstanding where they all fought with Wolverine to prevent him from taking Molly away. But there's just a lot of really fun characters and a lot of really fun interactions that, even though they're going to be a new status quo, even though they've been separated, a good number of them, the team is still there. And of course, the really cool thing at the end of this issue, not to spoil too much, but there are two last pages that this page, of course, calls back to Zavin, who was a major character early on in the series, in not this series, but in the original Runaways volumes, a shapeshifter who is now actually a general and leader of the remaining group of her light alien race. And then, of course, you've got, and I just blanked on his name, but you have a good old original character from the first team is back. And what's interesting is that they had the original artists come back and actually pull that off. So I believe his name is Alfana. Yes, Adrian Alfana, who is the artist in the first series, actually did that sort of wrap-up page for this one. So it's very cool. I'm kind of sad to see it go, but because of the irregular publication schedule, it's not as terrible of a separation at this point. But I did really enjoy the work that Rainbow did, and 38 issues is a pretty good run for any comic series, especially nowadays. So Runaways number 38/100. I don't know if anybody else was reading this, but it was good.
I read the first when they brought it back, and I loved the art and I loved the story, but I dropped off.
I have read Runaways number 1, the initial BVK, and I read the crossover with Young Avengers. That was one of the tie-ins with one of the events. Was it Secret Invasion?
Secret Invasion.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
and that
Secret
I read.
Invasion.
Yeah. So,
and there was also a Battle
it.
World. There was a Battle World Secret Wars tie-in series. But that's, again.
All right. Over to Brian. Brian, what's something you're reading that you're digging?
So I don't know if you guys have already talked about it, because I don't always listen when I'm not on. But can you see my phone?
No.
Mm-hmm.
So we all loved, I think, after a while, The Adventures of Kid Cable. I didn't love the way it started because I was like, what? But for those of you who aren't paying attention, you do know who Cable is, because that's important. Cable is, of course, this, muscly, elder warrior, thick, beefy thing that a character we all love. I think all of us universally here could say we love Cable in various ways. Don't maybe love who created him, but we do love the character. In terms of the comics, but it is he is the son of Jean Grey and Scott Summers, although by way of Madeline Pryor, and that's that whole other thing.
Louis Simonson is okay.
Well, yes,
we love Wheezy.
That's a fair point. We like who creator of Nathan.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not a hater. I think he's who he is.
He is who he is. He's like Popeye in that way.
And he has his place in history.
Fair.
And I think, and his enthusiasm remains, and I think you have to acknowledge that. I think that's a very fair way of looking at things.
Oh, okay, we'll go with that. So,
how's that?
So Cable series as part of the Krakoa universe, the Krakoa-verse. I don't know if that's a term, but we just made it up. Whatever, great. It's been about the young Cable and skinny little Nathan, who is probably in his maybe 20s, teens. I don't even know what age he's supposed to be exactly, but has been running around having killed off, the old man, so to speak. The last two issues of this fantastic series by Jerry Duggan and Phil Noto, which is again always a treat. Phil Noto used to never do sequential art; he would do just covers, and he was great. But we're all like, "Man, you should do sequential art," and he finally started doing it, and I'm so glad he's doing it. But then this book is ending, so hopefully he's not going to stop. They're finally at this point in the last two issues of the series, they bring back the old man, because the nemesis of Cable, as we all should know, if you've done your homework, is Strife, his evil twin. No, I mean, yes, it sounds ridiculous because it's comics, but his evil twin from the future, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. So young Cable, Kid Cable can't take on Strife by himself. He's worried because there's these children who have been abducted, whose lives in the balance. So he goes to his parents and he says, "Mommy, Daddy, and a third wheel thruple, Wolverine." No, Wolverine's not there, but I had to work that in. What do you think? What should I do? I'm thinking about bringing the old man back. And they're like, "Son, we support you. Whatever that is, whatever fucked up crazy thing that is, we're supporting you. And we'll do you one better. We're gonna bring the whole team." And they bring everybody in this final battle, which is also kind of fun. And by everybody, not really, but a handful of fun characters show up from Cable's past, of course. You get Domino, you get Deadpool, naturally, right? Because, again, big part of Cable and related to the other person that created him. And it's just a fun jam piece as far as the characters go. Beautifully drawn by Phil Noto. Jerry Duggan is probably one of my favorite of the younger, he's not even probably young, but of the newer crop of writers in the last 5-6 years. Originally, I didn't take him seriously because all of his books were kind of funny. It was like mostly Deadpool, I think. But over time, like for the Marauders, now the X-Men book, I mean, he's just done some fantastic world building and dialogue and character exploration with all these characters and toys. And I love him. I think he's great. I'm sad that Hickman is leaving the X-Men after Inferno, which was announced this week. But if they are just going to keep going with Krakoa the way it is, or in some sort of similar form, the fact that Jerry Duggan is around for that and is actively a big part of it, I'm fine with. He's doing a great job. So yeah, and I love Old Man Cable. So they brought him back and kind of sent at the end of this, spoilers, they sent Kid Cable packing Back to the Future because you can't have two. It works. And so Old Man Cable sticking around, it's fun. I love it. There's a little thing at the end, a little twist, maybe they'll follow up, maybe not, who knows. That's cute. I'd be fine if they didn't follow up with it, with this little kid who wakes up and you see something, you're like, oh. But honestly, it was just cute and great and fun. And even though there's some bad shit that goes down, it's never heavy. I feel like it's always a really nice tone that keeps it light enough for comics. And I think part of that is Phil Noto's art. It's cartoony in the best way. And so even when it's kind of dark stuff, it's pretty light. So Cable, and that is the end of that series until they bring the old man back, hopefully not too long from now with his own book in his former and amazing thick glory.
Yeah. Well, when you're saying like young Cable goes back, mommy, daddy, I'm just sort of thinking, mommy, daddy, daddy. Just yeah, I love this book. It also kind of suffered for some weird delays, big gaps between issues, but I thought, it was a fun romp. The relationship he had with a couple of the cuckoos at first, and I think Esme was who he ended up with at the end. I just think that was really fun. That did add a lot of lightness to the plot, because it was a pretty heavy plot. Strife has never been like a fun villain for Cable or for the X-Men. So
Strife in hell, abducting children to make a sacrifice. Like, it's not light in that sense.
No.
But my favorite line to your point about Esme and the cuckoos is like when I think she shows up and she's like, we're breaking up with you.
Yes.
I fully endorse the polyamory that is going on in Krakoa, whether it is the throuple with Scott, Jean, and Wolvie, or it's the 100%, 1000%. Good job, you horny mutants.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed seeing the few times that young Cable and Rachel have been juxtaposed as kind of like brother and sister, but not brother and sister. That's been a cool kind of element that they've explored in that.
Mm-hmm.
Not sexually, because that'd be weird, but
could happen. I don't know. Krakoa's
they might find something out later. Who knows?
All right, let's before we go into a weird place, let's go over to Caleb. Caleb, what's a book you're reading that you're digging?
So I grabbed a new book from our friends over at Fantagraphics. I'm trying to do this where the light doesn't completely think. I don't know if it's doing it or not. So it's by someone. This is a debut comic or a debut OGN comic, whatever you want to call it, from Lizzie Stewart. It's called "It's Not What You Thought It Would Be." Now, Lizzie Stewart is not new to the world of illustration. She kind of famously had a children's book called "The Tiger in the Garden." I think that's what it was called. So knows their way around illustration, everything. This book, I first found it, or it first came on my radar because it was reviewed by the Paris Review. And for those of you who don't know what the Paris Review is, it's a literary magazine. It's very hoity-toity. People like me who read literary fiction in its highest regard really respect the Paris Review. And so anytime I see the Paris Review talk about a comic, I kind of I'm interested, and I already know it's going to be on the short list for a lot of like the end of year awards and what have you. So they said some really lovely things about it, and so I wanted to grab it, and I did, and I'm glad I did. The best way to describe this comic is it is a fragmented, almost narrative if you want it to be. It is a series of short stories that focus on a number of age groups, be they young women, teens, up to middle-aged folks, older people, in different stages of their lives, doing really just mundane things that carry a lot of weight and meaning, but they don't necessarily realize it. And where I say it's an almost narrative, these stories they will focus on like the building of relationships of young people, and then another story will reference that, except the characters that are speaking will be different genders and different races, and so you don't know if they're those same individuals, but they're referencing the same thing, if that makes sense. So the story plays with these different segments of the world and different segments of being, in almost a kind of a universality, in a universal kind of way. And I thought that was interesting. I think that's a neat storytelling device to do that. One of my favorite stories, there a couple of young girls are kind of skipping school and they decide to go hang out on the roof of their school. And a boy walks by and one of the girls invites the boy, and of course the other girl gets jealous, and you never really know why they get jealous, if it's just a friendship matter or if there's kind of a subtle queerness there. And I think that's what I enjoyed the most about this book, because throughout the story there is subtle queerness through the whole thing, and it never becomes explicit. There are no moments. Nothing in this is defined, but they're also not defined as being heterosexual. There's another story where these three, the story says middle-aged women are having basically a girls' day, and they're going out shopping, and they're each telling about their lives and what's great about it, and it's all using female, she, her pronouns. One of the characters is drawn to be visually masculine. It looks like a man, but it's using she, her pronouns the whole time. So again, there's just a lot of things being played with there that open up a breadth of kind of cultural intrigue. And if you can view it through a number of lenses, but when you view it through the lens of, LGBTQ plus, it does really interesting work to kind of subvert expectations in the very mundanality of life, and in these everyday relationship building exercises that we do. I thought it was fantastic. Visually speaking, what I think is wonderful is Lizzie Stewart does not just have one style throughout the story, just like she is using different characters in different ways. She will flip the script and do completely different styles. She plays with color. She does a lot of gray wash. She does a lot of tonal work. Her cartooning style, her line width and her line weight changes all throughout the book. She doesn't just stick to one thing. If you didn't have a name attached to this, you would think these were several different artists playing with different styles throughout the medium. So she is a very adept artist and a very talented cartoonist, and I can't wait to see what they do. And I certainly hope to see this on some short lists. And this is the kind of book that I think a lot of people are going to. I think 100 different people could read this book and come up with 100 different things that the book is about. And I think that is wonderful. So check it out. It's from, like I said, Lizzie Stewart. It's not what you thought it would be. And the book is not what you think it will be. It's fun.
I do have a very quick question that's related. Since you admitted to being hoity-toity enough to regularly read the Paris Review, do you read it digitally or in print? Because from what I understand, it's one of the most elegant digital presentations you can find.
When I read it, I do read it digitally. Yeah, I don't have a physical copy, and it is wonderful. When I get the copies, I use actually a service called Flipboard. It's an app, and it's an aggregator. So a lot of times it'll just send me, hey, the Paris Review has this, and I'll flip over and watch it, or read it. Sometimes I think there's a limit on how many you can read, but just take out your history and keep reading. But yeah, it's really well done, and it's one of those things I hope never goes away. I adore the Paris Review, and I think it's, culturally speaking, it's important. Whether again, I'm bougie, so take that what you will, but I think it's very culturally important.
And this is something I want to bring up because I hate when people look down on people who read comic books for sampling this medium, because comic book readers are some of the most voracious and varied readers you're ever going to encounter.
Absolutely.
And when you just bring the Paris Review, I'm not bougie enough to regularly attend, but when you think of the library of books that have come out of that, and varied books from Jim Carroll's The Basketball Diaries to The Virgin Suicides to Portnoy's Complaint, it really is incredible. The literary criticism aside, the original fiction that has come out of that, or at least the germs of it that have come out of that, it's stunning. Yeah, absolutely.
And so to people who, I think part of that comes from people who, and this is not knocking superhero comics at all. I have I literally spend $70 to $100 a week, less than that if Roger's listening, a lot less than if my husband's listening, on comics, a lot of which are superhero comics. So I'm not knocking that at all. But I do think a lot of people, when they think of comics, they think of capes and tights. Comics are so much more. and it is one of the most sophisticated storytelling mediums, and one of the most nuanced and capable storytelling mediums that exists. It incorporates everything from visual language, from a universal visual language, to prose writing and everything else. It is the pinnacle of storytelling, in my opinion, which a lot of people disagree. But I think you can do more work with a few lines and a few words than you can do with pages and pages of prose. Not that I'm a writing major. That's what my degree is. I have dreams of one day writing character-driven, boring stories that no one cares about but me. But I still think that comics is one of the highest forms of creative process that you can dabble in.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to talk about one of them superhero comic books now.
Love it.
Okay. So DC is making me broke with all their annuals and one shots, and it's a lot easier to take when you do get quality one shots and annuals. And the book that I want to talk about is the Flash 2021 annual. This is the wrap up of the current arc with Wally West, which was I forget what it was called. But anyway, it's funny they don't even banner it as a conclusion of that. But basically, what we've had since Infinite Frontier, since Future State ended, is we've had Wally West regain the mantle of the Flash, and he is, because of the Speed Force, jumping from time to time to time. They're trying to determine why exactly he's going through these different periods of time, and to help him guide has been Barry, the current and future Flash, Mr. Terrific, and Green Arrow. And so we've seen him go back to prehistoric times. We've seen him go to the future. We've seen him go to the Justice Society of America's time. And what we have now is he goes to Heroes in Crisis. And for a comic book project that was as divisive as Heroes in Crisis, this provides a really interesting coda to it. It doesn't negate that certain events in that story are not Wally's fault, but they're not his fault in the way that you think they are. Also, as most people know, in Heroes in Crisis, one of the other heroes that died was Arsenal, the former Speedy, Roy Harper, who was Green Arrow's ward. And there's some absolutely lovely, touching moments between not just between Wally and Roy, but also between Roy and Ollie. It's so funny. Like I always go to the first names, the real names of the characters, when there's genuine affection for them. The writer is Jeremy Adams, and the art is split between Fernando Passarin and Brandon Peterson. If you can tell me who drew what, God bless you, because it felt like a very consistent art style throughout the book. And at the end of the story, apart from some of the developments which may make you reinterpret some of the events in Heroes in Crisis differently, we also have the resolve of where the Flash is at this point. When he started this journey, he was about to retire as the Flash because he just regained his wife. He just regained his kids from cosmic I forget what that how I characterized it earlier, but the fates had not been kind to Wally, however you look at it, and they started to be kind, and he wanted to enjoy that time, but he also realizes now that who he is the Flash, and it's a nice resolution to the story, nice resolution to another story, and also in terms of a done in one, it also works in that capacity as well. So I really, truly enjoyed this. So if anybody's reading The Flash, I mean, it was tough for a while because I do think that Joshua Williamson kind of overstayed his welcome in a sense. And that there's a new energy to this title is really, really nice to experience. So
that's good.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of stopped reading right about the time of the Flash War.
Yeah. I mean, there are things that literally repeat themselves in Williamson's run. You have two arcs with Grodd that are almost identical.
Yeah.
So it's and I liked a lot of his stuff, but it's like one of those things like Dan Slott on Spider-Man. He just overstayed his welcome as far as.
I haven't read it yet, but literally beside my desk, I've got a stack of all of this is Williamson's Flash. So, so I've got it, and I just need to read it. I haven't had a chance to dive in yet, but I am.
There's
I'm
a
very
whole
much
pile of Williamson Flash in there as well. I think it's one of these piles right here. It's just all Flash.
This is 31 through 75.
Oh my God! All right,
I've got reading it. I was gonna read it over the summer, but I didn't have a summer. So.
Yeah.
Do you guys quickly have another book you want to talk about? If you don't, it's cool.
I think we can do Woofs.
All right, I'm just going to do one quick one because it was very good. The surprise series that I'm enjoying is The Joker. This issue, I have the variant cover by Sean Phillips, which is pretty nice, according to Steve's face there. And this has art by Francavilla.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a story early on of James Gordon as Captain James Gordon in one of his earliest encounters with the Joker. As a done one, it really works. And Francisco Francavilla's art style on the Joker, I mean, it's just so cool. And you don't get a lot of interiors from him lately. So this was a nice surprise. Also interesting, though Tinian is credited here, it looks like they messed up here. It's actually co-written by Matthew Rosenberg. And with all the work that he's been doing mostly at Marvel, it's nice to see him dip his toes into DC. And just as a done one, you don't have to get the previous 4 issues. It's its own encapsulated story. It's pretty good. I was ready for I was ready for Tom King though there, Brian. I was ready. Like those were some of the first books I pulled out of the pile.
I just got them.
Yeah.
and that, like all 3 that he's doing, I just got the latest issues and I have not read them. So
are you also getting Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow?
I'm not. I've heard it's good. I probably picked that up. So
okay. The second issu's wordy, man. I like whoa, I'll do that later. It's wordy.
I heard something happened with crypto, and I was like,
"No, he's okay."
Okay. Oh,
don't worry. I mean, he's not okay, but he's okay. It's crypto.
I was gonna say,
you kill crypto. You don't kill crypto.
No.
Yeah. Though Alan Moore did, so I'll shut up.
He would.
Yeah.
I'm talking about gender in the law.
No. Oh my God, I haven't seen one of those. Oh my God.
Is that your woof of the week?
No, please, P.S. I will say though that there are some legal prep books, and now that he's been in this world, Caleb can verify this, that there are some test prep books that are actually enjoyable reads.
They are.
They really, the Glennon books actually are enjoyable reads. So that's not that far fetched, but. Oh, Jesus. Okay. I'll be okay in a bit. All right. And one of the ways I'm going to become okay is by introducing the next segment of the Comic Book Bears podcast where we start wrapping this up. And that's the Woofs of the Week segment. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him. We do something similar here where we signify something that may be a comic book, but it may also be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your Woof of the Week?
My Woof of the Week was a movie that was just released this past weekend here in the U.S., and that was the movie Free Guy. Ryan Reynolds has been, bumping and promoting this movie for over a year and a half at this point, because it was one of the movies that got, basically shot out an extra year due to COVID. This movie was fantastic. I do not play a lot of multiplayer, massively multiplayer online RPGs. And this is one of those sort of, the setting of this movie is on one of those giant MMORPGs where Ryan Williams plays Guy, who wakes up, interestingly enough, to something that's outside of his programming. and begins to evolve in very interesting ways when he encounters another certain player who's also more than she seems as well. So I thought that the plotting in this movie was well done, great pacing. Everybody in it does such a great job. There's some really great moments there. Taika Waititi plays sort of the villain and the head of the video game company that runs this game. And it's just a lot of fun. Also, there's a lot of surprise moments in here, including a very, very surprise MCU Avengers moment that happens. There's also a Star Wars moment that happens very quickly thereafter. I just absolutely loved it. Laugh riot, some great dialogue, a lot of fun, some good cameos from different big actors or people that you recognize. But definitely well done. Greg Berlanti and Sarah Schechter were producers on this movie, and they bring that feel of joy and fun from their CW shows that they've been producing together to this film, and then also Zach Penn on writing duty. So I think it just the film itself was just a blast. So go and see it if you can, or wait until it's out on VOD.
Okay, let's go over to Brian. Brian, what is your wolf of the week?
I do want to talk about Free Guy only in that he is invaded by Fortnite gaming. Because Fortnite, if you've never played it, they don't talk. Nobody talks. Like, that's a whole thing. But Ryan Reynolds shows up talking to you out of nothing and all the chaos. And you're like, anyway, but I am excited to see that. So I want to talk about one quick honorable mention and then the thing. If you're not watching Reservation Dogs on FX, this is a new series. Speaking of Taika Waititi, who is an executive producer on this, great show about the reservation sort of culture in Oklahoma, specifically in the U.S., and these kids that are sort of trying to figure out what their place is and learning life and yada, yada, yada. But Reservation Dogs, fantastic. Obviously nod to Reservoir Dogs in some ways, but The Wolf is about a comic and gaming project that a friend of mine, Isago, is working on. Isa-san has been doing this comic called Queer with a Z, and he has partnered with this company that is called Son of Oak Game Studio to do a tabletop game based on this series. Also using the universe of what's it called? City of Mist. I'm not a big tabletop gamer. I know like this much about it, but Issa's work is so cool. His art is beautiful. His story about it's basically like a gay superhero team figuring out their place in the world and helping this one character through all of it. It's really sweet and special. He's got some really exciting news coming up about queers that I won't spoil, but I have maybe heard about. So if you're interested in some really great manga about and translated, but also in Japanese, if you want to translate it yourself, it's Queers with a Z, and you can find this project on Kickstarter. They give you like a free demo somehow of the game, which I haven't tried yet. If you sign up, and then when the Kickstarter launches, there's going to be a whole other, the usual Patreon or Kickstarter campaign. So Isago and then Queers with a Z is, I guess, the easiest way to find it. Isago Fukuda, and I will put a link to this in the chat. And yeah, check him out. We should definitely get him on at some point. He's so super sweet. He's out of London, so we just got to work around time zones, but super sweet.
Yeah, Steve and I have been working on some interviews that what we'll do is we'll record and then present them because of people in different time zones. So that's certainly something we could add. Thanks for that information, Brian. That sounds cool. All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
Well, I don't know how I can compete with Brian and his insider information and secret knowledge there. That's, doing things. So my wolf of the week actually goes out to a comic book because, we love comics. And this is it just came out this week. It's a book that I hope that we all read and we can all talk about someday. Because it mixes two of my favorite things, and that is pulp era or pulpish science fiction and sodomy, because love both of those things. Good times. And that book is a new book called Killer Queens. If you haven't heard about this, put it on your radar. It's created by David Boer, script by David Boer, art by Claudia Balboni, colors by Harry Saxon, letters by Lucas Gattioni. Essentially, these two characters, Alex and Max, are they number one, it's called Killer Queens, and the tagline is they put the sass in assassin. So I'm still laughing about that. But they're space kind of cosmonaut assassins, and they take a job from their former boss, who is a sentient talking evil monkey, and he sends them to do kind of what's supposed to be a bloodless, no problem, just stuff them in the trunk and take them and pick them up and drop them off, which of course goes wrong. So I'm looking forward. I haven't read it yet. I've only read the pitch, but I love the conceit and I love the concept. So check out Killer Queens from our buddies over at Dark Horse.
Caleb, when did that come out?
It came out this week, so it came out Wednesday.
I pre-ordered that, and it's not in my box.
Uh-oh.
Have to send an email then. All right.
Karen Zanowitz.
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, I posted it like nothing turned me more into a Karen than the CVS. I can't even relive it.
But look how cool this cover is. I mean, like it's very Pulp Fiction-y. Like I really dig it, and the art matches the cover, which I think is really cool because that's not something we see a lot anymore. What you see gives you a good taste for what the interiors are.
Okay, for my Wolf of the Week, I'm going to go with an episode of a documentary series, and I know this is one that Steve and I have followed very closely, that spun off of Dark Side of the Ring, which was about professional wrestling. Right now, Vice is airing Dark Side of the 90s, and they had an episode about the Seattle grunge scene, but specifically about Sub Pop records. And it was really, really well done. There have been other documentaries, certainly going back to the 90s with the Hype documentary. This is terrain that's been covered before, but we're now covering it with the benefit of 30 plus years in some ways hindsight, and interview some of the key players like Bruce Pavitt and some of the other figures that were involved in Seattle grunge. Brian, I did the math, and I haven't been to Seattle since 1998, and that was when I think the Emporium had just been opened up for like a year then. So I gotta get back, and when I visit you, I gotta have a music day. But really, really well done. It's been a really well done series for the most part. If you want to catch it and you're terrestrial-ish, it's re-airing overnight tonight on Vice TV, and it's on naturally on demand. One thing I also really appreciate is it brings you up to the present day, and there was a point 15 years ago where there was something of a renaissance with Sub Pop, where they did have big selling acts again, like the Shins and the Postal Service, and it was really nice to see that end cap instead of and then Kurt Cobain died. It goes into much more specific detail about the changes in alternative music and alternative culture and where that led and where they are right now. Really, really well done hour of documentary television. And again, the name of that show is The Dark Side of the 90s.
They've got a Sub Pop store in Seattle Tacoma Airport.
Mm-hmm.
And every day or every time I fly in or out, every time I fly out, I go by the store only to look at the merch. I never buy anything because I'm like, I don't need this. That's nothing. Why would I buy a record as I'm getting on a plane, right?
Yeah.
But Orville Peck, one of my favorite queer country artists, I believe,
is on Sub Pop. Yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic. So yeah, Sub Pop's great, and I'm gonna have to find that documentary because I really am interested in the history of that.
Yeah. No, it's really well done. And when you mentioned about the airports, since I had an engagement in Minneapolis, I loved going by the Prince store. But it's the same thing. It's like, what am I going to do? I can't bring a picture disc on the plane. And also in Detroit there was a Motown store too, and that's kind of cool. It was closed a lot though because I had like terrible luck with flights. When I had the engagement in Troy, but yeah. That could be an interesting article about like record stores in and stores like that in airports. Somebody's got to do that article.
That's the subject of my thesis for my PhD.
My question is not about record stores. It's about the stores that sell the full-sized luggage after you pass through the checkpoints.
Mm-hmm.
What do you can't? It's not a you can't. It's a you can't even put it on as a carry-on. Like what?
Nope.
Who are they? How do you sell? How does that work? Are you going to go back through? I don't know.
Yeah,
they have to. It basically they ship it to your house. Like that's the only use of it.
Or maybe like your kid's driving you nuts and you put him in carry-on. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. You know, just stuff him in.
Or you're some sort of like drug mule and you buy a case and then you do something.
My
and it
friend
becomes your
George, though, my friend George did rip his pants in the airport, and he had already put his thing. So he did buy a pair of jeans once at one of those stores, and it was like a fortune too.
Yeah. Oh, they're stupid. They're stupid.
It was like Levi's, and they were like $127 or something. It was ridiculous.
The only time I bought clothing in an airport is if it's like a city that I really want to get like a thing from. Like they had this shark Jaws like pastiche, Jaws movie poster cover for the Narragansett Lager in Providence Airport.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, well, I gotta get that. Like that's ridiculous. And it was on sale too. Anyway, but yeah, all those stupid fucking stores with all the expensive clothing that's already overpriced, even in the real, other places. The airport,
possibly international travelers. I can't think of anybody else. That would be. And I just remember speaking of Minneapolis, there's a Brooks Brothers store there. And like I was like, I'm taking a picture of that, and I'm taking a picture of that, and I'm taking a picture of that, and then I'm going online and I'm shopping because I ain't spending that. Yeah. Somebody's got to do this article about stores in airports. There's something there.
Somebody did an article on the $40 appetizers at the Chili's 2s in airports. So it's just the next step. It's the next topic.
All right. Well, we stayed with you a long time. We did have all four of us again. So this did end up being a little bit longer, but we hope you don't mind. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, please do so by downloading us through iTunes, listening to us through Stitcher Radio, or catching us on some of the other podcatching platforms. If you're watching us through the Facebook channel, again, we thank you. Again, I know we've had some of our regular viewers like Tony and James and David Toby, Anthony Comito. So thank you again for tuning in. We always appreciate that. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please leave a review. And until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Brian Pittard.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye.